I want you to think back to the first time you ever remember being truly afraid. What was it? Does it stick with you today? This is the sort of thing that we talk about on the House of Asher. Won't you join us? The House of Asher, a clearinghouse for the mind.
Hey guys, it's House of Asher, episode 9. I'm your host, Steve Asher, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. And again, I want to thank everybody who's been getting some subscriptions up. I think we're up to 63 or 64 now, which, it may seem really small, but we had like 0, about 5 days ago. So it's actually coming up pretty quick. I do want to again make an announcement that we now have a sponsor. Allers House of Oddities, and also Creature Creations. He makes all kinds of different freaky dolls and spooky looking vampire babies and spider monkey monsters, and just friggin' freaky. Anyway, and also Posh Embroidery, who's handling all my Honies Up t-shirts. I want to get that out of the way to the really, really important stuff. I have with us today a lady that I've been following for a while, not like a stalker way, I cut out something wrong. I've been following her for a while. I've been on Facebook for a while and seen, the fact that she is like a really huge Danzig fan. I'd always see her like Sam Hain t-shirts, which is, for me personally, it's a neck and neck between Sam Hain and Danzig. I love Misfits. They kind of got me into it, but when I wanted something darker, I jumped off into Sam Hain and then, of course, Danzig. But my guest today is Miss Raven Danzig. And how are you doing, Raven?
I'm doing good, thanks.
That's cool. Man, I really do appreciate you coming on here. And like I said, people that have day jobs don't, you have to kind of get it in there, nickel and dime it when you can. And again, I appreciate, you working hard all day and coming in and doing this. Can you give like a quick little primer on who you are and kind of the stuff you've been involved in?
Well, I'm basically formerly lead singer of the Bleeding Light. It was a Danzig tribute band that I had about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm right now alongside with my guitarist boyfriend. We are Broken Crow. And you can find us on Reverb Nation at reverbnation.com/Broken Crow. So it's Broken and then Crow as in Krow. So it's all one word, Broken Crow.
Cool. And if after this later, if you want to send me like a link or something, I'll try to make sure to put that in there and put like in the description and the tags and all that stuff. So it should be able to find if you got. I don't know if you guys have anything up on YouTube or not.
We got YouTube stuff, and also on you can find our songs to download for free at Reverb Nation, and I'll give you the link.
Cool. That sounds great. Well, I know that, like you said, because we both kind of got into Danzig, which it was so funny because, like I said, this is the way it started for me. Like I said, I kind of grew up as a little Southern kid and grew up with like a lot of country music with my parents, and then my brothers discovered like Black Sabbath and stuff like that. And then I've got like 3 or 4 brothers ahead of me and 3 or 4 sisters ahead of me. I'm the youngest of 7. And so then my brother just over me, who became the guitar player, I was actually going to play drums or bass, but he kept pushing for me to play guitar. And I pushed it back. I was like, no, I'm going to do my own thing, man. But finally, once I got into stuff heavier than like say Scorpions and Van Halen, which that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I jumped off into stuff like Metallica and thrash and death metal and black, all the different types of heavier metal. And by way of like Kirk Hammett and Cliff Burton and all those guys, I'd be seeing like these really gnarly looking skull shirts and just, all the jacked up looking Sam Hain t-shirts, and I'm like, man, this looks like something I want to jump off in. How did you, what brought you to the metal? What brought you to, especially that kind of metal? Was that just like a slow progression, or how did you stumble across it, or was somebody maybe introduce it to you?
introduced me, basically Danzig introduced me to everything. It pretty much opened doors for me. And I was 9 years old at the time, and I was going to Catholic school.
Wow.
So, funny quick story of how I got into it. If you remember back then, like maybe late 80s, early 90s, there used to be a thing called Jukebox Network.
Right, yeah.
And I remember as a kid, we had a TV and we had a little substitute nun, whatever. So she stepped out. All the kids, they all gathered around. They kind of looked, back and forth, and the coast was clear. And then they took the TV, and then they put on the Jukebox Network, and they would actually sneak and use the school phone to dial the 900 numbers.
Oh man!
And of course, those kids, they always get the really bad boy band, Paula Abdul, those kind of artists back then. Those really Cornish and tacky pop.
Right, safe, barely palatable stuff for the masses.
Pretty much,
yeah.
But when Danzig came on, I was just intrigued. Okay, I could get into another story where my mom, she introduced me into horror films when I was very, very young, like as young as 5 years old.
Yeah, same here.
So flash forward, getting back to the story here, is that I got so hooked onto horror movies that I loved the obscure. I mean, at a young age, of course. And when I saw Danzig the first time, it just put me in awe. And of course, funny thing, when I was watching, it was the original 88 version of Mother, okay? It was the original video version where Glenn took the chicken and ripped it apart over the naked chick, whatever, half-naked chick.
Right, and then took the blood and was smeared on her stomach and all that.
Yep. And I remember that I was still in awe because I was like a little horror movie buff, and all the other kids behind me, they were just crying and freaking out. They were going, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
Poor chicken.
They couldn't hang. They couldn't hang.
Yeah, they couldn't handle it. But I was the only one that was just so intrigued. And this is Catholic school, mind you.
Right. Well, man, that's fertile ground. I mean, I don't know where, like I said, I was raised up in the Southern Baptist stuff, which in its own way is pretty freaking strict. But like you said, it seems when you have, and there's, like I said, again, there's another religion. I got a lot of people that are religious that are very good friends of mine. But it's a thing sometimes when you have something that's so vice-like, and people feel like they're put into these little margins and they're not allowed to do this or that or experience this and that, it breeds, I won't say sedition, but it breeds that dissent to going, well, I'm not supposed to do that. Why? It doesn't look so bad. Let's go check it out. And sometimes the stuff you run across is bad, but sometimes it's really good and it sticks with you. Or, I mean, did you feel like it empowered you, or how did it make you feel in regards? I mean, was there even a thing of going, this makes me feel a certain way, or was it just like, I really dig this?
It was actually a combination of both, how it's empowering, but also it inspired me, it entertained me. It was something that I've never, ever seen before. And 9 years old, I mean, with Danzig, it, gave me left me quite an impression. And ever since then, I have been listening to him nonstop. I've been to his shows. I've met the man himself, too. I mean, really cool, laid back, chill dude.
Well, see, that's what's always struck me, because like I said, I'd followed you for like many years at this point now, I guess. And like I said, because I would see, oh man, here she is with Danzig, or here she is with this. And like I said, even when you guys did the tribute stuff, I mean, you really stayed true to it. I mean, like you would have the blood shows and all that stuff, and I was going, man, that's freaking cool. Because like I said, once I got, more into okay, I'm stumbling because I'm trying to remember as I'm talking. Sorry. Like I said, obviously got off in like a lot of thrash and stuff like that. But then through my Metallica and stuff like that, I fell back into really hard into Sam Hain, and then I fell off into, of course, Dead Kennedys and Black Flag and Circle Jerks and TSOL and all these different punk bands. But I never lost my metal influence. When we played, which I was kind of like you on that, like I said, the main band that I did, Rex 84, which I don't even remember if you knew I was in a band, we would do like a lot of metal or like punky themed stuff, a lot of punky lyrics, but like everything was double, double bass, played through, very distorted guitars and stuff. And it was funny because we did a show down in Memphis for a punk fest down there. And it was sort of like I guess they were expecting us to come out in skinny ties or some crap. And so we started cranking out and we're like tuning up to like Omer or Guts All Fun, or we're sitting there, cranking out, jumping off into like Raining Blood or something like that. And they're like, they didn't understand it. And I was like, look, man, your roots are your roots. And for me, a lot of that was the darker metal, Danzig, obviously Sam Hain was sort of on the cusp of that before he was really seemed like he locked down into the rock, the more popular rock, formula that he's done. But yeah, see, that's what's so funny about it. Is, like I said, I remember watching the Danzig one video, or not the video, the like little I'm blanking out, VHS thing, and it had like all the stuff, and it had him talking. He was reading about the werewolf of Montague Summers and stuff like that. Which again, that turned me on to a lot of cool occult books I dig, and everyone was like, yeah, and he was talking about, he was looking at his book collection, and it's so funny because, like you said, everybody who was churchy here is just going, oh, he's just a devil worshiper. And I was like, no. I mean, the guy is telling you about your own faith. He's telling you about how certain things have been, and it's just by nature, I guess it's by osmosis, these different cultures pick up other religions that they've been a subject to or around. And I said, a lot of your high holidays or occult holidays are connected with older gods, And man, they about ran me out of town here when I was a kid. I mean, did you have that sort of, I don't say backlash, but did you kind of get like, oh, it's that god chick, man. She's gonna put a hex on you. I mean, did you catch any of that, or was it a little bit more enlightened where you were from?
It's actually more enlightened. Everyone was kind of cool, but where I was going to school at the time, I mean, the people over there were kind of a little strict. We had one teacher, or none, that I recall that she was more aggressive and more kind of old school, traditional.
Right. Knuckle cracker, right.
Hail Marys and, kind of punishment.
Right.
It wasn't, I mean, here where I live is not as strict. It's kind of more laid back, but then you got some people that are kind of like old traditional Bible Belt,
right.
enforcer.
Well, I always took it as, and I'm sure when you were a kid or a young adult or whatever, at the time, I would assume, I mean, again, I'm making an assumption, it was like, look, these people just, they don't get it, they don't want me to have a good time, they want me to be just like them. But, they probably saw it as, look, partially, this is different, it's kind of like there's a spider, kill it, maybe not to that extreme, but, we don't want that. And then I think there was probably that element of going, well, look, we know how the world is, and you stand out like that, you're going to be an easy target. And, so it was one of those type of things. Like myself, like I said, being the youngest of 7, my dad was a cop of all things, and stuff, but we were kind of a poor family because we had a bunch of kids. And, so I was already kind of, I don't want to say marginalized, but I was out there on that kind of cusp anyway, on the fringe anyway. And but like, it was different where like you seemed like you took it in stride. I sort of took my anger. I put my anger in my music, and it seemed like that's kind of okay. This is my suit. This is my monkey suit. Don't blank with me. Which it's taken me years and years of understanding this and that. I don't want to get all psychological about it, but you know how it is. I mean, you kind of get to the point where you still love that, but you don't feel like you have to use it like a blunt instrument on people necessarily. I mean, and you may never did. You were probably a lot more centered and zen than I was. I was just a pissed off kid, and from a small town. But now I know you mentioned that you had, have met Glenn several times. Did you ever get to meet? I'll talk to London May sometimes on here. I'm actually trying to get him on as a guest. Hopefully here in the next few weeks or so, I'll be able to do that. Did you ever happen to meet any of the guys from like any of the Sam Hain reunions or any of that?
Well, I didn't go to any of the Sam Hain reunion shows, but I did meet Steve Zane. I actually did have lunch with him a couple of times.
He seems like he's a good dad.
He's a very down to earth guy. I mean, really good guy. So.
That's killer. I had talked to I don't know if do you remember Bobby Still? He's like in the Undead. He did like early work with the Misfits and stuff.
Yep. I remember Bobby Still.
Like I said, he'd always been really good to me. And it's so weird because it's like they always tell you don't meet your idols, because you're almost guaranteed to be like a jerk and stuff. I've really not found that to be true. I mean, very few have I met that either just did not have any time for you, barring something tragic they're dealing with, or they're in the middle of trying to get on stage or something. For the most part, about everybody I've met, especially in like harder edged music, seems like they have time. It seems like, and I'm not downing pop musicians. That's great. I'm glad they're doing what they're doing. But sometimes it seems like when you have this mega appeal, and just, of course, everyone wants to talk to you, and maybe that's it too. But it just seems like, especially when you have, which I mean, obviously metal is a huge thing too. But what I mean is, okay, you might see somebody with a Backstreet Boys shirt. I'm really pulling it out of the past, but like a Backstreet Boys shirt, and somebody might walk past and go, oh, nod, nice shirt, something like that. You see somebody, with a Slayer shirt, it's Slayer or whatever, it's that. It's just the guy just nods like, yeah, he gets it or she gets it. There seems to be a real unity, especially now between kind of the punk scene and the metal scene, because again, there were such kind of outsiders, and now I was going to say, I know that obviously you're doing stuff with Broken Crow and stuff now. Now, how has that changed? Like obviously, I must, like just in my time of doing music. I don't mean to keep monopolizing the conversation, but the more you practice, the more you learn, the more you become comfortable. It seems like the more you're going to grow. It's just the nature of it and stuff. How have things morphed or changed since going from one project to the new project?
It's actually got me influenced a lot. It's got me to be creative. I have my own voice. I mean, for the longest time, I've been doing the Bleeding Light Danzig tribute stuff for quite some time, and as much as I am a fan of Danzig, and I always will be, it's just something that I felt as an artist, I need to have my own identity, my own voice. So. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, and that's, the whole thing, the most sincere form of flattery is imitation. And it's not even, there's a difference between imitation and being, like you said, a tribute. There's a huge difference, because I've seen a lot of bands, and I'm going, gosh, man, they need to cut somebody a check, man. They're just like lifting riffs from these people. But, like I said, you come to it like this, as like you said, as almost like an offering to the god of metal, and I know it sounds kind of cheesy when I say that out loud, but that's kind of the way I feel about it. And, it just really seems that it's so funny. I'm stumbling for words because, like I said, I'm trying to word something where I don't sound completely dopey, just mildly dopey. Have you, like, since then, have you gotten any feedback from Glenn and stuff on that kind of stuff? I'm sorry, I know I'm pulling Glenn a bunch into this, but it's just, that was a huge connection that you and me both had.
When the last time I saw Glenn, I was actually a few years ago. Last time he was over here in Minneapolis, and he was, I told I did tell him that I was going to do my own thing, and and still kind of trying to do the tribute stuff. But he was actually very pleased. I mean, he felt like I gave him homage to him, and to tell him that I'm doing my own thing. I think that's even got him more pleased because he knows he wants people. I've read interviews with Glenn, and he's always the type of person, the type of musician where he wants to influence people, but he wants to. I felt he wants new artists, new upcoming artists to find their own voice.
Sure.
No more copies of copies of copies. I mean, it's so done before, and it's getting to a point where it's kind of stagnant, where music is kind of stagnant because everybody's copying everybody.
Right. Well, I mean, look at popular radio and stuff like that. I mean, once guys like Nickelback hit, then every label wanted, their own Nickelback, or they wanted their own Daughtry or their own whatever. And like you said, it does seem like that is sort of a thing. And like you said, sometimes the bands cannot help but take influences. I grew up on a lot of Sabbath. I really dig, a lot of heavy bass lines and stuff. A lot of Metallica, a lot of run and bass, especially the early stuff. And like you said, it's going to stick with you. I mean, you don't have to, like you said, obviously lift their lyrics or their riffs and stuff. I was going to ask too. Now, like I said, what do you like to do? Like I said, I always kind of had this almost cartoonish quality. Like you're sitting there, and almost like an Elvira type situation. You got the candelabras on the wall, and like got the big raven sitting on the top of a giant stack of bones. You're the queen of the darkness. Kind of doing your own thing. I mean, what sort of stuff do you do that maybe isn't music related that you want to touch on? If anything.
Well, I've actually I actually would like to do more comic stuff, like more comic book, because I do draw. So it's just something other than music. I mean, I just want to spread my artists out there, like not just doing one thing, but doing different things, kind of doing different artistic work, just kind of showing different sides of me.
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too. Is it seems like, I don't know, I guess some people go, okay, well, I've learned guitar, or I'm pretty good at guitar, and I'm sticking with that. I mean, but it seems like certain people go, I mean, I know I'm sort of that way, too, with the music, and then I want to start, which I used to draw comics. I try to, more along the lines of like Marvel stuff or creepy and, stuff like that. But then, then I've started kind of trying to get into doing stuff like charcoals and trying to do some watercolors and stuff. And I'm not the best at it, but it's okay. And which, I don't know, well, I write, some books and stuff. So I'll try to like do art that's related to maybe a story or something. Like I really dug, do you remember Night Gallery back in the day?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, now everybody raves about Twilight Zone, okay, and that's fine. Twilight Zone's cool, but when I was a kid, it was Night Gallery. It was Night Gallery, it was Night Stalker, maybe Dark Shadows. There was like horror hosts like Sir Cecil the Creep and The Count of Five and, Zachary and guys like that before, and, Svengoolie, son of Svengoolie and all that. Before, of course, Dr. Gangrene and Elvira earlier and all that. I was always like a big horror, old school horror nut, Vincent Price stuff. And so that's what I try to kind of incorporate in my writing and incorporate into my art and stuff like that. Have you been able to, or do you like find a way of sort of incorporating your love for like metal and stuff like that into your artwork and into your just your other interest?
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to. I do write also, and I love horror for a long time, and I love metal, and growing up, it's been my whole livelihood. So everything that I put in my art, which is not just music or singing. It's also, writing short stories or drawing, certain characters or comic strips, whatever. It's brought a lot, a lot of horror and a lot, what I had to grow up in and what saved me. I always love to just kind of put all that into what I love doing, which is not just music, but also, art in general.
Okay. Well, let me ask you something. Like I said, I'm going to be winding down here pretty quick. And again, I appreciate you stopping and just kind of opening up to me. Because like I said, we've never really did a formal kind of sit down and chat session, and I appreciate it. Now, like I said, one of the things I always ask people on the show is about something that scared them, especially when they were small. I was exposed to like The Exorcist really early, stuff like that. Things like, porcelain dolls creep me out. Clowns creep me out, or especially when I was smaller. Now I've got like a room full of weird, creepy dolls that Doug from Allers Oddity sent me, which they're cool now, but I mean, when I was 4, I would have been like crapping myself. Is there anything that you want to talk about that maybe like freaked you out or that you were fearful of as a kid that maybe you got past and you incorporated in your music, or maybe something that's always just kind of hung with you?
Well, I was the same with you. I've actually, the first horror movie, one of the first ones was Exorcist, and the first movie that actually scared the dickens out of me as a kid. And now, the movie is not as scary as it was for me as a kid, but I think when I see like real life and everything, it seems it's more scarier than fiction.
Right. Well, that's I was going to say, because I mean, again, like you do like really, or done really like visceral, like blood concerts. I was showing my oldest daughter Alyssa, because I was like, hey, I always kind of discuss some of the people that I'm interviewing, and like I said, as I have 3 daughters, I'm in the mindset of they're daughters, but they're warriors as far as I'm concerned. I mean, go out there, don't let anybody tell you can't do something a man can't do. And I was like, hey, check this out. This lady's been like all over the place. She does, has these crazy shows and stuff. And they were checking. She checked. I said, that's freaking metal. I said, I know, right? And I said, I'm getting ready to talk to her. And so I try to incorporate a pretty good amount of female interviews. Anybody from like a horror host of different people that's done different walks of life. And like I said, it's really cool to know somebody is a very strong, confident female. Like I said, the world needs more of it, and I'm glad that you're a force for good in it. If that didn't sound way too sappy.
Nah, not at all. I've always been the type where, growing up, it was always male dominant. Anything,
Sure.
Whether it was a job or school or whatever, is always just. What kind of drove me into what I do, whether on stage or what I write or whatever, it's always seen, and not trying to be chauvinistic here, it's always, the men are always doing this, and I rarely see any women. And, recently when I did go on stage, ever since I started going on stage, I wanted to shock people, and I didn't even care if I got judged or if I got praised, whatever. I mean, I got a reaction. That's one thing that I would.
Well, you got up there and did it. That's the thing. The fact of, I'm trying to think. Okay, like was it like I think it was Jim Morrison, right? Got up there and I'm not going way back. I'm sorry, but it was on the Ed Sullivan Show and said something about I think get that high or something like that, or get higher or something on one of the songs. And they said, hey, you're never going to do this show again. It just doesn't matter. We've already done it. It was just so ballsy. Like, hey, man, we've already did what we wanted to do. We said what we wanted to say. It doesn't matter. You're just not going to take it back. You can't change it. And like I said, that's super cool and that's super ballsy. And that's what I dig about you. But like I said, on the way out, is there something you want to say before I do my little outro here in a second? Is there you want to re-mention your pages and your band site, or maybe any events you got coming up, shows you're doing, or anything?
Right now it's just we're in production of writing new material, so we're in the process of that. But yeah, make sure that people check out Broken Crow. Again, it's broken and then crow with a K, and it's reverbnation.com/Broken Crow, Facebook.com/Broken Crow.
That's awesome. And I'll try to make sure to put a link to that in this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, I guess, get ready to finish this interview and do my outro real quick. And again, I appreciate you being on here. And as quick as I get this up, I will shoot you a link to it. And like I said, it will be under House of Asher on YouTube. And feel free to send it out to people. And, you know, if you know some people that might want to subscribe to it and get the word out, I appreciate it. And I will try to do the same with your Reverb Nation page as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, anytime. And like I said, you guys have a good night getting there. And I know you're tuckered out. I worked all day, and it's time for the weekend.
Yes.
Again, I appreciate
Amen.
I appreciate you being here. Keep rocking out, and I hope to hear from you soon.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, Raven Danzig, pretty cool, right? Like I said, you really need to check this lady out. She's very talented, very versatile, down to earth, sort of people I like talking to. But as we wind it down, night's already fallen here, and you know we've got the lights on. Something walking around in the hallway. Maybe it's something good, maybe it's something bad. But before you go to bed, make sure to lock those doors, close those shutters. Check the closet. Look under your bed. Most importantly, I want you to remember, stay scared.